Anything else about what you heard in that Acts passage?
Day by day, not done once, it's done consistently.
Consistently, day by day. Yeah. It's not just once a week. It's not just once a month for those who don't make it every week. It's not just what we do on Sundays. And it's not just what we do when we gather for worship. And then we get in our cars, and before we drive out of the parking lot, we're already cussing somebody because they cut us off.
It's also not steam for the next, month or so after this meeting, and then
Yes.
things fizzle out.
Yes, yes. And that's where the vision piece of this has to keep moving. If we get energized about, how many of you have been to, now Priscilla does this pretty well, because what happened, how many people are on a Priscilla week? Okay. Wow. Okay, now when you came back from Priscilla, was that the end of your experience?
No.
So you keep grouping, don't you?
Yes.
How many of you have been grouping for 10, 15 years? Wow. Okay? That's what we're talking about. We've got to take the momentum that comes out of today and comes out of tomorrow's worship and in the weeks to come. As we get a visioning team together, we start coming up with some ideas for things to do as we move forward to kind of change this pattern. We can't just talk about it and let it fizzle. Excellent. Somebody else say that. Jen.
They obviously weren't attached to their possessions.
Yes, they were not attached to their possessions. They were giving. They were willing to let go. There's a question, and this is that pamphlet I was telling you about. It came from the ELCA and the Florida Bahamas Synod. And one of the questions in here that relates to that, it says, are you willing to give up even treasured things in order that the church and God's mission can live? It's a tough question. Am I willing to give up the things I like if we need to? Let's say that. Ooh. Anything else? Powerful. One of them was Bethlehem Lutheran Church in Minneapolis, and it's one of the older, more established, beautiful cathedral building. They've got a choir. Joanna, they've got about 60 people in this choir, maybe 80. They're all wearing robes. They're in the back balcony with this huge pipe organ you would drool over, and it just the stained glass windows, and the worship was pretty good. I was amazed at how the pastor, I've never heard the words of institution spoken so fast and with no meaning in all my life. But it was a and the children's sermon by the younger pastor was interesting, but it went right over the heads of the kids. But other than that, worship was pretty good. The people were fairly friendly. It was a unique kind of, and then they had a list, and they had like 200 kids in their confirmation program. And I'm thinking, this is great, but I'm also thinking, where do a lot of the ideas for the ELCA come out of? Those stronger areas. When was the last time this church had 200 kids in the confirmation program?
Never.
There's not a church in Florida in the ELCA that has 200 kids in the confirmation
We
program.
need that Walmart building.
Yes, we would pay more
Walmart,
money.
yeah.
My point being, the setting in which you are in, the context in which we're going to look at a little bit later today, the context in which we're in, who's our neighbor, is key to how you do ministry. And a lot of what we could do up in Minnesota, if you're in Minneapolis, St. Paul, you ain't got to do a lot of evangelizing because they're all coming.
Hey, come on, let's go to church.
But we're in a different place here, and we've got to think differently than the church that we're in.